So here's something really rather interesting. A new race bike not designed for the pros, but designed for us regular cyclists who might train very seriously and race their local crit series or road race series during the week or at the weekends, or the many legions of people who buy race bikes with no intention of ever pinning a number onto their jersey, but enjoy the speed and handling and excitement of a race bike. So this is a brand new Factor Monza, named after the high-speed F1 circuit in Italy, naturally, but rather unnaturally. It's not a bike designed to satisfy the demands and needs of pro cyclists, so it's not lighter, stiffer and more aero as is the usual way with pro race bikes these days, but a bike designed to be more accessible for us regular people. But what does that actually mean? Well, if you're buying a bike with your own money and you're training and racing, you're probably doing it on the same bike. So a bike that's easier to ride and race and train on, and a bike that's easier to work on for the home mechanic as well, with no support team, no team mechanics on standby. And I dig this approach because normally bikes like the Tarmac SL8 or the Factor Austro Vam and other top level race bikes are designed very expressly for the pros, and the concerns and needs of an amateur rider never factor into the design of that bike. But cycling is an amazing sport where you can buy the same bikes the pros use. You can't do that with F1 or MotoGP or any other sport, can you? And that's a really appealing part of cycling. Now, this approach by Factor isn't unique. They're not the first, but it's very rare, it has to be said. And Cervelo is the only other company I can think of that has the same approach. They have their top level flagship S5 race bike for the pros, which you can buy as a regular cyclist as well. But instead of doing what companies normally do and just trickle down that bike via different group sets, components and carbon fiber layout to a lower price point to make it more accessible, they actually developed a new bike a few years ago in the Soloist, which is, I guess, a dialed back S5. Not as extreme, not as radical, but easy to live with, easy to work on. They change out some of the features from the pro bike for the amateur bike to make it easier to work on yourself with your own tools at home. So similar to Cervelo in that approach of, rather than just filter down their top level race bike, they've launched a new bike with some real world friendly features. So what are the real world features? Well, let's go through the details of the new Monza a bit more. The first one is the geometry and handling, which they say is the same as the Austro Vam. So two bikes should ride in a very similar manner through corners and climbing and all that sort of stuff. There's no compromise in stiffness between the two frames either. But one key area of difference in the fit. So the fit is dialed back a bit from the Austro Vam. So firstly, it has a 10mm higher stack and a slightly shorter reach to bring the handlebars a bit higher and closer to you. Not as relaxed as an endurance road bike, but a bit more dialed back as a race bike. And that taller head tube means you can run a slammed or very low stem with no spacers, because I see far too many race bikes with a big chimney of spacers. I saw one the other day with 3 inches, about that much, of spacers below the stem. Far too much in my opinion. So Factor recognise this and have fitted a bike with a taller head tube to allow you to slam a stem and still get a fit you need, actually need, rather than want, which is, now everyone wants that super slammed race fit, but their backs can't really manage it, and I include myself here. So a really sensible approach to geometry. Will be interesting to ride it and see how it resembles other race bikes and how close it might be to an endurance bike in that sort of regard. But I think it makes a lot of sense to have a taller head tube, as I've seen with a few bikes like the 51 Seeker that springs to mind, which isn't an endurance bike, but not a race bike, but a geometry and fit for real world cyclists who still want to get pretty low and racy, but do need a slightly higher front end, or you can run that stem nice and slammed, but still get a nice fit on the bike. The other interesting change reflects the growing trend for very aggressive forward positions on the bikes, with shorter cranks that open up the hip angle with a steeper seat angle. So you run that saddle much more forward and get really over the bottom bracket, really over the front of the bike, as we're seeing in the pro peloton, and amateurs do copy the pros, so it makes a lot of sense. And that's a trend that I can see getting more popular on race bikes generally, with seat angles becoming a bit steeper. The new Ridley Noah Aero had a similarly very steep seat tube as well. The other really interesting detail, and one I'm sure will set the comments alight, is in-frame storage. becoming very popular on gravel and mountain bikes. And now we have a road race bike with in-frame storage. And there aren't many road race bikes. There's the Trek Domani, the Specialized Diverge, but there are not many road race bikes designed to allow you to put all your inner tubes and CO2 canisters inside a frame. And there are several reasons to having in-frame storage over a saddlebag, and one of them is aero, with Factor claiming that a seat pack can cost you 6 watts. I guess it depends on how big that saddlebag is and how well fitted to the saddle it is. So a nice claimed aero benefit from removing the saddlebag and putting the stuff in the down tube. The weight is also lower for marginal lower center of gravity benefits as well. And I like having stuff in the frame because it's weather sealed, out of the way of the elements and all the crap from the rear wheel which get thrown into the saddlebag. And by removing the need for the saddlebag, they have developed a GoPro adapter to go on a saddle clamp to allow you to fit a radar or rear light. The saddle clamp also has 2 positions as well, so you can just see the fit of the bike as you need. So for road racing, or it could be a good duathlon time trial bike as well, some clip-on extensions. Up front we have full internal routing, but the system is designed to be easy to work on and compatible with any handlebar system on the market. They are using a round steering tube, so no D-shaped or funny shaped steering tube or triangular steering tube, with oversized 1.5-inch standard size bearings top and bottom. And the handlebar comes in lots of different dimensions, sizes as well. And the tops of the handlebars are a bit slimmer than the all-out aero one on the Austro Van, so trading a bit of aero for a bit more comfort when you're riding along on the tops. If you're not racing, you're riding, cruising around looking at the view, you might spend more time, as I do, on the tops when climbing or cruising along. So a nice move there to have a slightly less aero, slimmer top profile on the handlebar. And then lastly, the frame is UDH compatible, so any new future group sets will go on the frame no problem at all. And a space for up to 34mm wide tyres, and with ISO clearance of 6mm, you probably go a bit wider if you want. And that's more than the 32 that's standard on most race bikes, not as much as the MV Melee at 35, but definitely a move in the right direction. So you could fit a nice wide 32, 34, maybe 35mm wide tyre, and have a really comfy, smooth, fast aero race bike, not for racing, but for blasting around the lanes at the weekend. So those are the main details of the bike, and then we come to pricing and availability. So you buy the frame set on its own for $4,000, or there are 2 builds. Shimano Ultegra Di2 costing $6,800, or SRAM Force 2x costing $7,000. So just 2 builds, nothing higher than Force or Ultegra, and nothing lower either. No Rival or no 105, maybe in the future that might change, and nothing higher with Red or Dura Di2 offered. But I can see people wanting to buy this bike with a high level group set, because even with Red or Di2 Dura, you're still getting a cheaper bike than buying the Austro Van. I guess they try to keep the price below the Austro Van to keep a clear difference. If you want the best, you buy the Austro Van, which is very expensive, and sort of keeping a lid on the price of the new Monza. But I can see people wanting to buy the frame set and build it themselves, because the Austro Van is still much more expensive, to give some comparison context to the price of the new Monza. So an Austro Van frame is $5,500, so $1,500 more, and the bike starts from $8,000, so a lot more expensive for the Austro Van. So you want the best of the best, yeah, it costs a lot more money. And to put that price in a bit of further context, compared to the Cervelo Soloist I mentioned earlier, the complete bike with Ultegra Di2 is actually the same price, $6,800. But, big but, if you buy a frame set, it's a lot cheaper. That Soloist frame on its own is $2,700, so a lot less than $4,000. And you can buy a frame and wheel set module for $4,400 or $4,500 as well. So quite a lot cheaper to buy a frame set of that Cervelo on its own, but buying a complete bike, there's nothing in it. So it would be a really interesting comparison test. Cervelo Soloist in the blue corner and Factor Monza in the red corner. That'd be a really interesting duel to see which of those 2 bikes performs the best, and also how they compare to top low race bikes like a Tarmac SL8 at a similar price point, or a Super 6 Evo, or a Trek Madone SLR, or SL probably in that price point. And last detail to mention, it comes in 7 sizes from 45 to 61, and it's available now. I'll put a link to the Factor website down below if you want to check it out. As you can tell, I haven't seen the bike in the flesh yet, not had a chance to ride it, but hopefully in the future that will happen. So stay tuned to Just Ride Bikes for a ride, hopefully, fingers crossed, of a new Factor Monza. Now, do let me know what you think of the bike. Is it a hit? Is it a miss? Is it a bike you would buy? Is it a bike that ticks the boxes you look for in a race bike these days? Or is it dialed back too much from their pure flagship race bike? Or is it a smart move? And should more bike companies like Specialized, Cannondale, Trek offer bikes like this as well? So yeah, really interesting move. I think it's a really cool move. But let me know what you think down below. But that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon.